Good evening and welcome to Views with Joyce Waddell. I want to thank you for joining us this evening. We have a very interesting program for you. We're going to be talking about homeless people in Charlotte, homeless people in the United States, and why people are homeless and what we all can do to contribute to helping each other. Sometimes we think that we can't make a contribution, but we can. If you really think about it, each of us could be in that situation. Sometimes we're just one paycheck away from being homeless. You see it a lot in some large cities, and sometimes you see it in small cities, but a larger degree to cities of over 100,000 in population. And so, when you see people walking down the street begging money, oftentimes they're doing it as a way of survival, a way to live, a way to get their next meal. And so we have as our guest tonight, Angie Ford and Dowd Asset. And they're going to be talking about the homeless population. Both of them are very compassionate. Both of them are very caring, and they help the homeless to see a brighter day, a brighter future, a brighter way of life. Welcome, Dowd.
Thank you very much.
And welcome, Angie.
Thank you.
Dowd, what made you interested in helping the homeless?
I nearly became homeless myself. I was living in Atlanta and I was buying a home, and I was 2 months behind in my mortgage, and they foreclosed and sold my home while I was still living in it and still paying the mortgage. I wasn't getting any further behind, but they foreclosed and sold it while I was still in it. And I got sick right after that and came to Charlotte to have an operation, and didn't have anywhere to go back to anyway, so I stayed here.
Well, you know, wasn't that illegal? And we have something called legal aid. We have legal organizations that help people when they have been discriminated against. We have legal organizations that help people to make a difference when something has happened to them and there's a wrongful act. It seems like this was wrongful.
Well, I got a lawyer and they investigated, and the conclusion was that while they knew I was paying the mortgage, I didn't have proof that I was mailing the money orders in. They said, "We know you're buying them," because I had the money order receipts, "but do you have proof that you're mailing them in?" And they knew I mailed them in. I said, they said, "Well, we sent them back." So they already knew I knew they were getting them. But in the courts, I didn't have proof that I was mailing them in. And that was the grounds that they were able to foreclose and sell.
That sounds like it's a discrimination case. That sounds like a case, something that your congressman could have helped you with.
Well, it's a discrimination case against everybody in the United States, because the laws are skewed for those who hold deeds in the mortgages. The laws are skewed for the big companies. They're not skewed to the consumer.
How long had you been in your house?
Oh, about 5-6 years.
And you just missed two payments?
I was 2 payments behind. I had just finished school, got my associate's degree in paralegal studies, and I told them that, and I was expecting to get a better job where I could catch up. And I think they sped the motion up then to foreclose and sell.
Well, with this new law put in place by Obama administration that says you have to give people 3 months and they cannot just sell like that, was it enforced then?
It wasn't enforced. He wasn't president yet. This was in 2006.
Oh, things were quite different.
Quite different.
And you didn't have all the foreclosures in 2006 that started.
It was right at the beginning, I believe. It was right at the beginning of what we're experiencing now.
Oh.
And we weren't, you weren't really aware that this is what was the tendency was going to be.
Because there are ways now. And I think if you look into that, you can go back and have justice done for you.
We will see.
Angie, you've been active in helping homeless people because you care about people, and you care about them who are living on the bridges, and you care about them who don't have enough to eat.
Well, I read in the New Testament that the Son of Man had nowhere to lay his head. So I thought in my efforts to be closer to Jesus, I had a better chance of doing it if I were among people who lived the way he lived. And that's what took me to the Urban Ministry Center. And there I discovered a bunch of people who helped me to understand what life is like, the realities of life. I have been blessed and lived a very sheltered life. I've never been without a home, but I learned that I am one of the potentially homeless. A serious medical catastrophe, as you mentioned, paycheck. My job was eliminated in 2006. And if I did not have a family support system, I too would have been on the streets.
So your family support system made the difference in your life.
Yes.
They were able to help you
Yes.
when you didn't have a job
Yes.
and provide financially for you so that you were not homeless.
Provide me with a home. I live now with my mother in her home.
And so when you go to the urban ministries to help people who are homeless, they don't want to be homeless, and they are looking for a way to improve their lives. I'm certain that you do counseling with them to help them to see a better day. What are some of the things that you do to help?
We have this conversation regularly with the neighbors who come to the center looking for assistance, asking them about their homeless situation, how long they have been homeless, or what caused it. Were they in Charlotte at the time, or did they come from somewhere else? Because I've heard this story going around that people come to Charlotte because there are ever so many benefits here. I have found that is not accurate. Most of the people who are homeless in Charlotte were in Charlotte when they lost their home. In some cases, they lost the job. In some cases, there was a family situation. Some people had to flee from domestic violence and had nowhere to go. Don't make enough money to afford a house. Housing in Charlotte is not cheap.
It isn't cheap.
No.
I mean, what does it cost?
Well, that
Average.
I don't have an average number because it varies from neighborhood to neighborhood.
I mean, the very lowest that people could live
But
in,
if people are making minimum wage,
which is $7.25.
you typically cannot
that what it is?
afford
It's about that.
to
It's
pay
maybe-
rent anywhere in Charlotte.
It's about that.
They can't rent. They can't pay
Can't
rent.
afford
You
it.
can't, there's no place that will rent to you if you make $7 an hour. There's where would you? There's no place that you can live for that amount of money.
So people are having multiple jobs. Yes, if you have minimum wage jobs, people are trying to hold down 2 and 3 jobs in order to be able to afford somewhere to live. There are some low rent units available, but they are nowhere near enough for the vast numbers of people who are making little bit of money. And especially in these economies, people have lost even the minimum wage jobs they once had.
And so that's why you see so many people who are homeless and sleeping on the bridges. But as I was riding by the area not far from the shelter, I see a sign up there and a fence up there saying that don't come, you can't stay out, do not enter. But you see people there anyway.
By the shelter?
Yes,
The
by the
men's
bridge.
shelter?
The bridges. The bridges are usually state property, and the state laws don't allow people to stay there. And people will do what they have to do to survive. And so if you see people there, they are breaking the law. They may be very well aware that they're breaking the law, but they have no other choice.
Okay, we have a couple of shots here of food and trucks bringing food and homeless people here who are delivering food. And we're going to talk about each one of them briefly because you have organizations that do provide, sometimes churches, abundance of food. As you see in the first picture, this portrays this is public service photo of someone who's hungry. And we know that most of people who are living in poverty are children. Mm-hmm. Because they can't provide for themselves. And so do they take children along with them?
Some of the people who come to the shelter bring their children. That's the heartbreakers when you see little children at the Urban Ministry Center. They should not be in that environment.
There's an article in the Observer today that's mentioning that the school children, the number of school children who are homeless is increasing. That's in today's paper.
And if you are homeless, how can you do homework?
Where do you do homework?
And if you are concerned about having a place to sleep tonight and it's cold outside, I don't think you're going to be worrying about the algebra test. So it accumulates the problems in people's lives that they have to deal with. It is not just, I don't have a home. It is therefore, I can't have this, can't do that, have difficulty.
Okay, we have the other one here of homeless people that relates to people not having enough to eat and people here eating. And because we see people here, this happens to be looking at Haiti because you have an abundance of homeless people there and people living in makeshift housing shelters. So this is another example of what we see, but we don't see anything quite this bad here in Charlotte, do we?
Actually, you do.
Oh.
They hide. They hide.
But you have something just as bad as this?
Yes, absolutely.
Not on the scale, perhaps, that Haiti has,
yeah.
But there are people who build makeshift shelters in the woods.
Yes, yes.
They build them under the bridges, but they're usually cleared away from the bridges by law enforcement.
So we have a growing problem of homelessness in this city at this time.
Yes, we do.
Absolutely.
Now, I was reading something concerning the Obama administration and stimulus money and stimulus package and provisions that are being made. So do you see the results of any of that?
Well, they had the, what did they call it, the timeline?
And we have another one. He brought us another picture up here of homeless people that shows, you know, how people are living on the edge of life.
One thing I will say for Charlotte is that in the area of food that you were talking about, people in Charlotte are very generous and they do give food. There are different individuals and organizations that bring food to help to feed people who don't have an income and don't have a home. However, that is a stopgap measure. So we will not have many people dying of starvation on the streets of Charlotte through the generosity of Charlotte citizens. But we will have people dying of exposure. We have people dying of lack of medical care because they don't have a home.
Artists, we're continuing to talk with Angie Ford and Dawad Asset as we talk about homelessness and the growing homeless population that we have in Charlotte and how people are trying to survive and trying to live a respectable life in difficult situations. And they both are sharing instances that things happen in their lives that cause them to really take a look at what was going on and cause them to take a look at how they can help others and keep other people from experiencing some of the same things that they have experienced. And so you said people come and they talk to people who are homeless and they interviewed and they tried to find out how they can help.
Well, we did a study, the Urban Ministry Center, in conjunction with an organization called Common Ground out of New York, did a study called the Vulnerability Index. They've been doing this in major cities across the country to find out really who are the homeless people. Up until now, we just had estimates. Some of the local agencies did what they call a point-in-time count. So they pick a day, and they go and see who they could find. They count the people in the queue at the Urban Ministry Center soup kitchen, things like that. But the Vulnerability Index, we spent a week going, searching out the camps and searching for the places where people stay. I was on the team that went to the Mecklenburg County Jail, interviewing the people in the jail who had been identified as being homeless to find out, was it just a temporary situation or had you been homeless for a long time? To identify those people who are what we call chronically homeless, meaning they've been homeless for longer than 3 years or they've had more than 4 episodes of homelessness in the past 3 years.
And what did you find out?
That there are 847 people in the city of Charlotte who are chronically homeless.
They
That's
have no-
significantly higher than the number we'd guessed. We'd guessed about 500. No, 847.
Nowhere to live and no place to call home.
And for many years, I think the longest time that somebody had been homeless was 35 years.
Did they have mental problems?
Many of them have mental illness. Some have substance abuse difficulties. Some are what's called dual diagnosed. That means they have both mental illness and substance abuse difficulties. It's very hard to get and keep a job and to maintain a home if you're also fighting the demons in your head.
So that's the biggest reason that people are homeless.
I don't know that it's the biggest reason, but a significant percent of the chronically homeless population has those issues to deal with, yes.
But if your largest population and the largest group of homeless people happens to be children, then do they have mental illness too?
Mostly no. The children are homeless because their parents are homeless. So if a Daoud situation, the house is foreclosed on, here is a family with children that has to find a place to live. We have organizations like A Child's Place that ministers to homeless children, but again, the demand is far greater than the supply of help that's currently available. And really the solution is not more A Child's Places. The solution is housing. Affordable housing that folk can live in.
Do you think it's disproportionate with the African American community?
Disproportionate. I mean, the percentage of homeless
Correct.
African American people as a percentage of the homeless population is greater than the percentage of African Americans in the population at large, yes. But there are all kinds of other social and economic factors involved with that. So I wouldn't want to make any pronouncements without doing a study. I have not done a statistical study to be able to account for that.
But when you look at the people who are lined up at the soup kitchen, are they basically African Americans?
No, they're all kinds. White, black, beige, spotted.
If you see 100 of them, I'm reading this. Stimulus plan for Black America. Too many black people don't have assets. Okay, and this is from the Obama administration. If you can combine vision with opportunity and talent, you can create real wealth within our community. And our financial comes from a financial advisor. Her name's Tucker, Cheryl Tucker, and she's reporting from Brandeis University from her study about the wealth gap. And this is why she says that we have so much homelessness. And she says that families have more than quadrupled over the course of a generation, and that there's a big wealth gap, and that relates to homelessness.
It does. Well, so there's always been that wealth gap. You know that 2% of the people control 98% of the money in this country, and that means that 98% of the people have less than 2% of the money. So there's a big gap.
Is it racial too? This country shrinks away from.
It's not racial. There are people who think it's racial because they don't count the money. They don't count where the money is. If you count the number of people who have the 98% of the money, you will find that they are mostly made up of one race.
They're white. They aren't black, are they?
Right. But if you find the people who have the least of the money, they're all mixed up. They're black and white. And people think that people who have money don't care what color you are. You either have money or you don't. I think that's the missing ingredient.
It's about a lot more than race. There is little doubt that race is a factor.
Let me tell you what she says.
One among many, but it's about more than race.
Okay, let me tell you what she says. This country shrinks away from anything race-specific, but slavery was race-specific. They didn't enslave whites, Hispanics.
They did, actually.
Okay, I'll read what she says. Yeah. Whites are Native Americans. Now, when you talk about race-specific solutions today, everybody says no. I know this is tough and that nobody wants to touch it. Okay? Cheryl Tucker is an award-winning business journalist and top-notch media executive.
Well, we know that white people came here as indentured servants. They were able to buy their way out of their indenturement, and once they were out of indenturement, they were able to blend into the society. The African people who were here as slaves, if they were able to become free, they still bore the scarlet letter of their identity, that you are a former slave. And we know also, even in the North, that some free Africans were captured and put into slavery mistakenly.
In the North.
In the North,
Now
yes.
they were captured, and they didn't care who they were. They brought them back to the South and made them work.
Yes, yes.
Audience, we'll continue to talk with Cheryl Ford and Dowd Asset. Angie Ford. What did I call you?
Cheryl Ford is my sister-in-law.
And I'm just looking at Cheryl. I'm looking at this name Cheryl on here because Cheryl Tucker. Angie Ford and Dowd Asset. As we talk about homelessness and why people are homeless, we're going to pause for a moment. And then we're going to look at some very startling statistics from some researchers that did studies on homelessness. And we're going to listen to some sights and sounds. In fact, we'll have a lady who was here earlier, and she's going to do her song again.
Go ahead, drive the nails in my hand, laugh at me where you stand. Ooh, go ahead, say it isn't me. The day will come when you will see, 'cause I'll rise again. There's no power on earth can tie me down. Yes, I'll rise again. Death can't keep me in the ground. Go ahead, mark my name. My love for you is still the same. Go ahead, bury me. The day will come, I will be free. 'Cause I'll rise again. There's no power on earth can tie me down. Yes, I'll rise again. Death can't keep me in the ground. Go ahead, say I'm dead and gone, but you will see that you were wrong. Go ahead, hide the sun, but all will see that I'm the one. 'Cause I'll come again, come to take my people back. Yes, I'll come again, come to take my people can't keep me in the ground. Death can't keep me in the ground. Death can't keep me in the ground. Death can't keep me in the ground.
Artists, we'll continue to talk with Angie Ford and Dowd Asset as we talk about being homeless, as we talk about the growing homeless population in Charlotte. As we look at some research, and I'm going to quote something, poverty programs alone fail to recognize that if two people are running at the same pace, one is 20 yards ahead and the other is 20 yards behind, the one who starts out behind will never catch up to the other. And that's what we see a lot in America, because America has historically used government subsidies like veterans benefits and tax incentives to stimulate the economy, reward the innovation, and encourage savings.
For those who have money, yes. If you don't have money, you can't save. If you don't have a job, you don't get the benefit of the tax cut. You have to have an income to benefit from the tax cut.
And it's not so much about catching up to anyone as to getting yourself established in a home. I'm not worried about catching up to somebody who is 10 yards ahead of me. I'm worried about finding myself a place to stop.
You know, in some countries they have what you call community homes. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
Do we have any such thing here in Charlotte?
I am not aware of any. They may well.
Well, a lot of people live together as a family. You see what I'm saying?
We have boarding houses here where people will live in the same place, but they're not a family.
What are they then?
They're roommates, so to speak, housemates, so to speak.
Oh. I think we can find a solution at some point for this, and I applaud you and the good work that both of you do. You're really an asset to this community, and you're a valuable resource to the people whom you serve. I wish we had more volunteers like you, more people with commitment and a willingness to make a difference in the lives of others. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you for the time.
Yeah. That's difficult work.